أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فوضوا أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل ونعم المولى ونعم النصير والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على الرسول المسدد المصطفى الأمجد المحمود الأحمد الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد. وقل رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتاب الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ومن الناس من يشري نفسه ابتغاء مرضات الله صدق الله العلي العظيم. My respected elders, brothers and sisters in Iman across the globe, Salamun alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Question: was Imam Ali alayhi salam the first Khalifa or the fourth? Keep this question in the back of your mind, inshallah, we'll return to it. When looking at and discussing the position of leadership in Islam after the Holy Prophet, one of the most persistent questions that has emerged throughout history is with respect to who was the rightful heir of the Prophet after his demise. Was it Ali ibn Abi Talib? Was it someone else? Who was it? And what was the system of leadership after the Holy Prophet? Did the Holy Prophet lead a system of leadership or not? And if so, what was that system of leadership? Was there a particular type of leadership that was left behind him or not? And this is a persistent question for Muslim historians and the Muslim community at large. And it has very vast repercussions. Because somebody may come forward and say that we bring up this issue, the Shias bring up this issue because they want to divide the nation, because they want to prove that they are right, and therefore it is something that is a divisive issue. Whereas when we look at the history of Islam and other people coming forward with respect to this, other claims from other Muslims, saying that this is an issue that you've made a big deal out of, this is an issue that shouldn't be discussed, this is an issue that's not that important. Well, the fact that it has been discussed for 1400 years and has persisted for 1400 years shed some light on its importance as a matter. But it's an important matter for several other reasons that I would like to highlight in tonight's discussion. Because the basis of our belief system, the basis of our iman, the basis of our deen is based on what are called the roots of religion, the foundation of the religion. That is Tawheed, Adala, Nabuwa, Imama, Qiyama, or Ma'ad. That idea that we have to have our own proof, our own evidence for certain things. For example, I may go on the day of judgment before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I may be able to say that in terms of fiqh, in terms of jurisprudence, in terms of the branches of faith, in terms of salah, saum, for example, amar bil ma'ruf, nahi anil munkar, tawalli, tabarri, all of these things, I can say, for example, I followed XYZ marja. For example, Sayyid Sistani. For example, Sayyid Hakim. For example, Sayyid Sheikh al-Najafi. For example, Sheikh Ishaq Fayyad. You take your pick. Ayatollah Wahid al-Khurasani. I may be able to say that for my fiqh, for my jurisprudence, but I cannot come forward and say on Yawm al-Qiyamah to my Lord, my Creator, that I, for example, I did taqleed in my beliefs, in my tawheed and in tawheed, adala, nubuwa, imama, ma'ad, these things. I cannot say that I refer to a marja on this. Every individual must have their own dalil, their own istidlal, their own proof, their own evidence on these matters. Therefore, when this question emerges, why do I follow Ali ibn Abi Talib? Why is Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen my Imam? That why do I accept him as the first Khalifatahu bila fasl, without any gap after Rasulullah? And why do I not accept other people? And furthermore, for the Muslim community at large, when they come forward and tell me, as a follower of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, that you believe that Ali is the fourth or the first, and we believe he's the fourth, what's the difference? What's the big deal? It is a big deal. And the reason that it is a big deal and why history marks this and why our belief system is contingent upon it, ours as well as yours, is for the following reasons that I will highlight in this conversation that we will have in the next few minutes together. That is, number one, I want to look at what was the state of the Muslim empire, what was the state of the Muslim nation after Rasulullah, what had emerged historically during the Khilafah time of Abu Bakr and Umar, especially, and leading into Uthman? What had happened historically? Number two, I want to look at this issue of the Khilafah and who is the Khalifa after Amir al Mu'mineen. How is it so central to our belief system? Not only Shia, but also Ahl Sunnah. And what are the repercussions of this worldview? Number three is the worldview itself. That is, everything is based on a worldview. And the worldview that Muslims may have grabbed and the worldview that Muslims may have captured may not be their own. What does that mean? That means that worldview that Muslims may follow and adhere to, it may be that that worldview was actually reverse engineered by someone else. And who was that someone else? The other element that I want to go to is what is it that the companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen said and highlighted with respect to the position of Ali ibn Abi Talib, with respect to the position of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, and how vital and how important is this position? What have some other historians of Islam said with respect to the position of Ali ibn Abi Talib, and how important and how integral is that? Keep all of these points in mind, these 5 points in particular, and we'll look at this topic and analyze it to understand better. Was Ali ibn Abi Talib the first or the fourth? And why is this relevant? And why is this important to you and I living in America, living in the United Kingdom in 2020, inshallah? Beginning with the first point, what was the state of the Muslim empire after Rasulullah, the Muslim nation after Rasulullah? After Rasulullah, there was a moment in time where there was an emergence and there was a call and a cry for leadership. Different people wanted to come forward and take on the mantle of leadership. And in this, we saw that there was a gathering at Saqifa, Banu Sa'ada, where there was an argument or discussion amongst the different companions or the so-called companions of the Prophet. And when they began to discuss and have this argument amongst themselves, there was no consensus amongst the companions at Saqifa Banu Sa'da. There was no consensus. Up until the point that Umar ibn Khattab draws his sword and he says that I will end anyone who does not pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr. And it was something that is called fear and trepidation emerged, that if you do not pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr, then you will be killed. And so this fear, this trepidation emerged. Historical facts. This is not to divide anyone or any nation. I'm laying out the facts for the world to see. That is, one makes their own decision based on the analysis. So it was a fear of trepidation and compulsion and coercion that one must follow Abu Bakr, otherwise Omar drew his sword. This was the first level. When he became the Khalifa Abu Bakr, he established a system where he was the person who was ruling over the nation. As time progressed and it came into the era of Omar, Omar was not appointed and did not rise to the state of Khalifa the same way that Abu Bakr did. Abu Bakr was appointed how? It was, they say, a vote which had coercion in it because Omar instigated it. But nonetheless, they say it was a democratic vote. By the way, Plato, Aflatun, was against democracy for this very reason. Why? Aflatun, Plato argued in his Republic that whenever you will have democracy ruling, you will have mob rule. You see this in today's world today. People are coming forward and saying, open up the city, open up the country, open up the world, because we want to get back to our normal lives. But the experts in the field are coming forward and saying, you don't know the ramifications of this from a scientific perspective, for example. You don't know the ramifications. The people who are experts in infectious diseases, they are the ones who should be consulted. This is what Plato argued, that if you ask the lay person, the person who's voting in society, if you ask them what they want, they may not have expertise in that matter. And it is not until all the philosophers become kings and all the kings become philosophers. This is where Farabi, the person who's called Muallim al-Thani in Islamic philosophy, he came forward and said, that philosopher king that Plato was talking about was none other than Rasulullah Azam. That's why when we look at this and we analyze why we have this belief system, there's a logic behind it. Karen Armstrong, a scholar who has dedicated her life to looking at Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, all the major religions of the planet, she said if there's any religion on this planet that adheres as closely in theory to the republic or the philosopher king of Plato, of Aflatun, it is Shia Islam. Because they have a system of 12 vicegerents, 12 princes to lead one after the other, and they have philosopher king theory. but in practice it was not implemented because of what people did to the imams. I say this because, coming back to the point, Abu Bakr is appointed through the political system, the general consensus that was coerced. Number one. Number two, Omar was appointed how? Was it a vote again? No. Omar was appointed by Abu Bakr, direct. First one appointed the second one. Well, when Omar came to power, what happened historically? When he came to power, you look at the history, you look at the data, you see that the Muslim empire began to expand. When the Muslim empire began to expand, it expanded into Persia and other places as well. So the economic growth of the empire began to grow as well. And the amount of influence that Omar had began to expand. And there was a vested interest amongst people to keep the status quo going. Why? Because they were conquering lands. As they were conquering lands, they were going towards, for example, Andalus in Spain, and Granada and Cordoba on one side, and they're going towards, for example, Persia on the other side, and they're expanding in every way. Well, as this expansion and the conquering continues, what happens? Wealth increases, income increases. The more lands they conquer, the more wealth and more income comes from the looting and the plundering, for example, or whatever was going on. And so, as a result of that, the people wanted to maintain the status quo. Why? Because they were living well, they had good income, they had good wealth. As the empire is expanding, they're doing well. And this led to an environment that there was tumult, and there was a situation and a scenario where amongst the chieftains who were leaving Omar and his likes, there was some treachery, to the extent that Ayatollah Hakim in his book, he highlights this point, and he said that on his deathbed, according to not him only, he cites Ahl Sunnah scholars, that Omar on his deathbed, after he had an assassination attempt on his deathbed, he called out and he said to the chieftains of Quraysh, the people who were close to him, I doubt and I wonder as to whether this assassination attempt that was done on me was done with your knowledge and insight. You knew about this. He's highlighting that they didn't have trust amongst one another. Furthermore, in Tariq al-Tabari, is Tabari a Shia scholar? Tabari is not Shia. He's from Ahl Sunnah. Tabari highlights that Omar did not allow any of the companions, any of the Sahaba, any of the people who were the companions of Rasulullah to leave Medina. He did not permit them to leave Medina. Why didn't he permit them to leave Medina? Because he had a fear that if they go to another town, they leave Medina, they go to another town, a nearby town, they become a saint there. The people begin to praise him. They begin to say, wow, you're a companion of Rasulullah. We never saw a companion of Rasulullah. They began to revere him. He gets clout. He begins to get a gathering. He begins to get forward. And he says that I can build an army, and he goes to attack Medina. And then if you do have 10, 20 different companions doing this, this would cause and lead to instability in Umar's rule. Therefore, he did not allow any companion to leave Medina except unless he appointed severe surveillance and vigilance over that person. Tariq al-Tabari. Said the Hakims highlights this research from Tariq al-Tabari, or the history from Tariq al-Tabari. This is how the tumult and the environment had emerged during the time of Umar. So the seeds of discord had begun to be sown. Uthman's time as well. Uthman historically was the first Umayyad ruler in terms of lineage and in terms of heritage. He was Umawi. Umawi meaning the same line and the same tribe, the same clan as Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. The same tribe, the same clan as, for example, Yazid ibn Muawiyah. The first one from that line was Uthman bin Affan. Now, when the question emerges about Ali ibn Abi Talib, look at how it's happening. The first one, Abu Bakr, he is appointed by what is said to be a vote of the general consensus, which had an element of coercion in it. Number one. Umar was established how? Because the first Khalifa appointed the second Khalifa. It was not a democracy or democratic vote. The third, how did the second to third transition happen? Well, what happened was that after Umar, there was a council of a few people, about 6 people, one person with a veto power, Abdurrahman bin Auf, he was given veto power. Ali ibn Abi Talib was part of that council, and he said, Ali ibn Abi Talib said his case, and they did not accept. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, you know that I am vested with, after Rasulullah, I'm the one who has the most authority. Yet they denied him, and they gave veto power to Abdurrahman ibn Auf. This council of 6, 7 people, they got together, and then it was another, a shu'ara as they call it. That was how the third was appointed. And then how was the fourth appointed? The fourth was appointed when the people went to the door of Ali ibn Abi Talib and they said, Ya Ali, Ya Amir al-Mu'minin, we have nowhere else to go. You are the only one to save us. And so the people asked Ali ibn Abi Talib to take over. This is what happened historically. Therefore, are you telling me that Rasulullah had not established any system of governance? Rasulullah had not established any system of leadership? Therefore, how can it be that one was elected, one was, for example, appointed by the first one was, for example, appointed by a council with one person having veto power, and then finally the popular opinion, the people went to the door of Ali ibn Abi Talib? How four different ways? How is that possible? And then you say on top of that, it's not important, Ali is first or fourth, it doesn't matter. It does matter. Why? Because when you look at the books of Ahl Sunnah, of our brothers in Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, you will realize there is a tradition that is found there that is considered to be authentic by them. What does that tradition say? That tradition says very clearly and categorically that the one who dies without ma'rifah or without knowledge, for example, man mata walam ya'rif imam zamanihi mata mitatan jahiliya, that the one who dies without cognizance, ma'rifah, knowing the imam of their time, dies a death of jahiliyyah. There's another tradition amongst our brothers in Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah that says that the one who dies without giving bay'ah to the imam of their time dies a death of jahiliyyah, a death of ignorance. Now, ignorance in this sense does not mean that they did not know. No, it refers to ayyam jahiliyyah, the days of jahiliyyah, where someone who was listening to the message rejected the message. That is the likes of someone like, for example, those people who were Abu Jahl or Abu Lahab, or these people who heard the message and rejected it. That means it was those pagans who rejected the message of Islam. That means it's a big thing that person's akhirah is not to be, that person's akhirah is in question. So therefore, principle number one, that mamata walam ya'arif imam zamani, the one who dies without ma'rifah. But no, the tradition from our brothers in Ahl Sunnah says the one who does not give bay'ah to the imam, that person is gone astray, or jahiliyyah, is in the state of jahiliyyah. Number one. Now, if Abu Bakr was appointed, and therefore Abu Bakr is the imam, if that's the belief system, therefore that means that those people, Omar, did he give bay'ah? Did Uthman give bay'ah? Did Ali ibn Abi Talib give bay'ah? These are questions that are very important. And that means that if Ali ibn Abi Talib was the first, and he was the rightful, and he's the one who is Khalifatahu bila fasl, and Ali ibn Abi Talib is the rightful one, and Abu Bakr took his seat, or Omar took his seat, or Uthman took his seat, that means that they have erred. That means they have made a mistake. Why? Because the hadith of the Prophet is saying very clearly, the tradition of the Prophet is saying very clearly, that the one who does not give bay'ah to the rightful imam of their time, they're dying a death of ignorance. That means that we must look at what's right. We must look at what is truth. We must look at what is the righteousness. In fact, furthermore, the tradition says, يَوْمَ نَدْعُ كُلُّ أَنَاسٍ بِإِمَامِهِمْ. That is on the day of judgment, on the day of resurrection, that when we will be in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after resurrection, in the day of judgment, that every imam will be raised, every person will be raised with their imam, their guide. That means if someone took someone else besides Ali ibn Abi Talib as their imam, they will be raised with that person. For example, if Ali ibn Abi Talib is on one side and Muawiyah is on the other side, one group will be raised with Ali ibn Abi Talib, the other group will be raised with Muawiyah. Who's right? If both of them are claiming to be the leader, one of them's right, one of them's wrong. Furthermore, when we look at this question about what is right and who should be followed and who's the righteous one to follow, how can we say that at one moment Muawiyah is fighting against Ali ibn Abi Talib in Siffin? How is it that we can say in the battle of Camel, the battle of Jamal, Ali ibn Abi Talib is on one side, and on the other side you have Talha, Zubair, Aisha, that they're both right? These questions have to be answered. That's why the issue of Ali being first or fourth is so critical within Islamic history. Because if you say that Muawiyah is also right, and Talha and Zubair and Aisha are also right, and Ali is also right, that means that, are you being consistent across the board? What do I mean here? Because if you look at the history of Islam and the histories of Muslims, when it came to the issue and when it came to the matter of those people who opposed Abu Bakr, what happened? What did they say? Ibn Abi Quhafa, what did they say? When the Muslim world came forward, they said that anyone who opposed Abu Bakr, anyone who opposed him is considered to be murtad, is someone who is an apostate, someone who is outside the fold of Islam. This was the statement. that anyone who opposes is Abu Bakr, the first Khalifa according to Muslims, that person, that is considered to be an individual who is somebody who is murtad, outside the fold of Islam, apostate. But what do they say? Stay right there. If that's your view, that anyone who opposes the Khalifa of the time, that person's an apostate, stay there, don't move. Stay right there philosophically in your mind. Okay, what about someone who opposes Ali ibn Abi Talib at the Battle of Siffin, at the Battle of Jamal? What about those people? The person who comes against Ali ibn Abi Talib at Jamal, Talha, Zubair, Aisha, the people who come against Ali ibn Abi Talib at Siffin, Muawiyah, are they also people who are murtad and apostate because they came against the Khalifa of the time? The Muslim world comes back and says, no, they made an error in ijtihad. They made an error in their deduction of their analysis, and that's an error in judgment. Ali was more right, and these people were wrong. Hold on a second. 1 second you're saying the person who opposes the first Khalifa, that person is murtad, outside the fold of Islam. On the other side, you're saying the person who opposed Ali ibn Abi Talib, the people who not only opposed him, they went to battle against him, they went to fight him. That those individuals are somehow they made a mistake in ijtihad. You're giving them a clean pass, a to-go pass, a get out of jail free card. Why this double standard with respect to Ali ibn Abi Talib? Why this dual standard? Why it may very well be what we said at the beginning of our lecture series. Your worldview. Your worldview may not be your own worldview. What do I mean? Philosophers, Nietzsche and the likes and many others throughout history have said, you tell me where you live, the time and space. Two things, zaman and makan, and I will tell you what your views are without you saying a word. That view, that this idea that Ali ibn Abi Talib, anyone who opposed him, they were doing a error in ijtihad, and Ali was more right, but they were also right. Referring to Talha, Zubair, Aisha, and also Muawiyah, that was a creation of the Umayyad dynasty, the Umayyad dynasty. That view was reversed engineered so that people would believe it, and therefore they would say that Muawiyah was also right, Ali was also right. Talha, Zubair, and Aisha were also right, Ali was also right. That view is not your view. That is the view that has been planted in your mind by the Umayyad dynasty. Someone has to ask the difficult questions from the Muslim world. Why has this happened? What happened historically? This is also why the doctrine of predestination, complete predestination, emerged and still exists till this day. For this very reason. Why? That this group came forward, they said, how can we legitimize our rule? The Umayyads began to say, how can I legitimize my rule? I'm sitting in this seat, which should be the right of Rasulullah or his progeny, but I'm here. How do I legitimize my rule? The way they legitimized their rule is they said that everything is predestined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has knowledge over all things. And Allah is anything that happens in our world, it's happening with the knowledge and insight and the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then the fourth level, they came forward and said, well, this Khalifa who's ruling, it's happening under the vision of Allah, the knowledge of Allah, the guidance of Allah. Therefore, because it's happening under the knowledge, the vision, the insight, and the predestination of Allah, that means that Allah accepts it and Allah put it in place. And therefore, if Allah put it in place, anyone who speaks out against the Khalifa of the time, that person is speaking out ultimately against the will and the knowledge and the view of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, they are to be killed. This is the level of reverse engineering of the mentality that existed. To my brothers in Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah across the globe, when we revive and when we commemorate Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullah salamu alayhi, when we do this, it's not because we're trying to raise his level above what it is. Allah has exalted his position. Who are we to exalt his position? It's because Allah had decreed his position to be such. But we're trying to highlight and analyze what was going on and what's going on in your mind. And by the way, this is an issue, if you consider it, it's an issue, at least on our front, of not a new view. It's rather something to revive the view of old scholars. How? Ahmad ibn Hanbal, in our brothers in Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, there's different schools of thought. Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi, Hanbali. These are the four schools of fiqh. One of the books of fiqh, or one of the books of hadith, is Musnad of Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Ahmad ibn Hanbal, is he Shia? Is he a follower of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam? No. Rather, in fact, you will find the opposite of this in many respects. His son, Ahmad ibn Hanbal's own son, goes to his father. He says, my father, can you tell me what is the hierarchy? What is the rank? I say this because it seems that the Muslim world has put a rank to the first to the fourth. What do I mean? It seems that they're saying that the first one who ruled, because in chronology he was first, he's also the first in his status and his position. That's why they're saying that if you oppose him, you're apostate. The second one, he's less than the first, but he has a higher status than the third and fourth. This is what it seems like the Muslim world is saying. If you're saying that, that means that you're saying that Ali ibn Abi Talib as the fourth, you're saying his rank is also fourth? I need to question that. I need to answer that. I need to respond to that view. That's why I'm answering. Ahmad ibn Hanbal's own son, he says, my father, you are a scholar of hadith. You are a scholar of so many works. Can you tell me the order, the rank of the companions of Rasulullah after Rasulullah? Who are they? He says, he begins to say, name one, and name two, and name three, and name four, and name five. He goes down the list. He goes down the list all the way through. His son's waiting, his son's waiting, his son's waiting, up until the point, a moment comes where he says, my father, I'm shocked, I'm astonished that you mentioned all these companions, but not once did you mention the name of Ali ibn Abi Talib. You didn't mention the cousin of Rasulullah, the son-in-law of Rasulullah, the brother of Rasulullah, he named him himself. He says, my son, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, my son, you asked me who are the companions and what is the rank of the companions after Rasulullah. You didn't ask me that what is the rank and the status of the self of Rasulullah, the nafs of Rasulullah. Ali ibn Abi Talib is not a companion. Ali ibn Abi Talib is the nafs, the self of Rasulullah, as evidenced by the ayah of Mubahila. Mubahila is not to be taken lightly, that the Quran stated, Anfusana wa anfusakum, that bring yourselves, bring yourselves, we'll bring ourselves. In the place of his self, Ali ibn Abi Talib was brought by Rasulullah. That is, that even Ahmad ibn Hanbal recognized this. Further than this, Tafsirul Kabir, Fakhruddin al-Radhi, Ayatullah Wahid al-Khurasani, Ayatullah Wahid al-Khurasani. In fact, some say perhaps one of the A'la Marja' of this time, one of the most learned perhaps of this time, along with Sayyid Sistani and Sayyid Hakim and these great scholars. This individual says that if you put all of the scholars of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah on one side of the scale, and you put Fakhruddin al-Razi, not a Shia, Ahl Sunnah scholar, on the other side of the scale, the weight of the knowledge of Fakhruddin al-Razi will be more than all of Ahl Sunnah combined. This is a Shia scholar, Ayatullah Wahid al-Khurasani, validating that this person had some knowledge. This person, Fakhruddin al-Razi. What does Fakhruddin al-Razi say? He says in the verse of Mubahila, in the tafsir of the verse of Mubahila, with respect to Ali ibn Abi Talib, he says Ali is exalted above all others because if anyone, Allah made Ali ibn Abi Talib as close to the nafs of Rasulullah in creation as any human being has come to. That means that when Allah created Ali ibn Abi Talib, He made him as close to any creation as Rasulullah as any individual can become. That's the position, that's the height, that's the fadila, that's the merit. Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, not Shia. Fakhruddin al-Razi, not a Shia. He's highlighting that Ali ibn Abi Talib is the nafs of Rasulullah, and that Rasulullah who's rahmatan lil alameen, who's the Rahman all of nations, that Ali ibn Abi Talib, that individual, he's not exalted above this first, second, third Khalifa, for example. No, rather, Ali ibn Abi Talib is at that station and that level that you and I cannot fathom. What level? We're told when Ali ibn Abi Talib is struck, and he has been struck on the 19th, and that same place that he was struck by Amr ibn Abdawud, that began to bleed, and when the blood began to seep and the poison began to seep, we're told that Ali ibn Abi Talib, he called his companions nearby. He called all of his nearest companions and he said, my companions, I want you to ask me whatever you want to ask me before I leave you. Saluni qabla an tafqiduni. The one who asked on the mimbar, he's asking now. I'm about to leave very quickly. I'm about to leave very soon. Tell me, ask me what question you have. I will answer you for your sake. At that point in time, the Imam, there's a narration that says the Imam asked, keep it brief, keep it quick, because I'm in a very quick, let me answer it quickly. At that point in time, one of the companions of the Imam was a man by the name of Sa'sa bin Sawhan. Sa'sa bin Sawhan, the brother of Zayd bin Sawhan. Sa'sa was a person who was a great orator and he was a courageous man. Sa'sa, we want to look at the truth, look at what Sa'sa says. Sa'sa was asked by Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. He was asked that, oh, Muawiyah said, oh Sa'sa, you know Ali ibn Abi Talib, you know me. who is greater? And he said that, tell me about my merits. Am I worthy to sit in the seat of Khilafah? Should I be sitting in the seat of Khilafah? Is this where I should be? What is your view on this issue? He said that he began to look at it, and look at this. You're standing in front of the ruler of the time, and he can have your head cut off. But look at the courage of Sa'sa. Look at the audacity of Sa'sa bin Sawhan. He said that this place, the people, those who rule by might, those who rule by fear, those who rule by entrenching and implanting fear in the hearts of people, those are not true rulers. He says, by Allah, on the day of Badr, you did not have a sword nor an arrow in your hand for the Muslims. He's highlighting the historical facts. Sa'sa is telling Muawiyah, on the day of Badr, which side were you on? Where were you? Were you with Rasulullah? Were you with Ali ibn Abi Talib? Were you with Hamza? Were you with the Muslims? Who were you with on the day of Badr? He says, on the day of Badr, you did not have an arrow nor a sword in your hand for the Muslims. No, rather, you are a tulaqa ibn tulaqa, that you are a freed person and you are the son of a freed person. Referring to what? That on the day of Fath Makkah, on the day of the opening of Mecca, what happened? When the opening of Mecca happened, at that point, they went towards Mecca. Rasulullah had the largest army. When he had the largest army, he said that today he can trample, the world said, not he. The world said we could trample over the Meccans right now like never before. But Rasulullah forgave all of them on the principle that these were tulaqa, the people who had been freed by Rasulullah. The principle was that these tulaqa were people, there was questions about how they became Muslim. Was it because of fear or whatnot? They were not to become leaders in Islam. Sasa is highlighting that reality, that this tulaqa, the tulaqa should not become khulafa and cannot become khulafa. He's saying your father Abu Sufyan was a freed man of a tulaqa. You yourself were freed. How are you sitting in this seat? When yesterday your family were in stiff opposition to Islam, how are you taking this seat? How is this person who is the same thing that Sayyidah Zainab had said, huh? Yabna tulaqa, when she referred to him, highlighting the historical fact that you should not be in the seat in the first place. Check how you got here. How did you get to this place? How did you get to this position? Nonetheless, with respect to this reality, Fakhruddin al-Radi, Ahmad ibn Hanbal recognized this idea that Muawiyah and his henchmen and his likes must be careful, must be mindful before they take over the seat. This same Sa'sa, when Ali ibn Abi Talib has been struck, he has a conversation with Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. The conversation continues in the following way. Which way does the conversation continue in? Sa'sa says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I know you've been struck. I know you're leaving this world very soon. I know you've also said that ask me before I leave you. And you've also said keep it brief. But Ya Ali, I have a question, and it may be a difficult question, and may be a long question. Perhaps you can forgive me. Do you give me the permission? This same Sa'sa who responded to Muawiyah asked this to Ali ibn Abi Talib. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, Sa'sa, you have the permission. Ask me what you want to ask me. At that point in time, he said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, are you afdal? Are you higher? Is your merit higher? Is your position higher? Is your status higher? Alama Majlisi narrates this. According to him in his writings, he says that Amir al-Mu'mineen says to Sa'sa, that when you ask this question, it's a big question that you asked. At the same time, he says that it does not look good that a man should compliment himself with his own tongue. Yet, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also stated, Allah Azza wa Jal has also stated, وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ, that make known the apparent praise, make known the ni'mah, the blessing of Allah upon you, make it known. Therefore I make it known to you. O Sa'sa, according to Alama Majlisi, Amir al-Mu'mineen says that when Sa'sa began to ask this, he says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, are you greater in merit, or is Adam alayhi salam greater in merit? At that point in time, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, Ya Sa'sa, that know that I am greater than Adam. Although Adam is exalted, although Adam is elevated, I am greater than Adam. Why? He said, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Adam not to go towards, they say, for example, they translate it as a tree, but it was according to the tradition, it was a wheat. It was wheat grass or wheat tree. At that point in time, when he said this, Adam alayhi salam, he went towards it and he began to eat because he had been deceived by shaitan. Our sixth Imam was asked about this as to how did Adam do this? Did he make a mistake? Did he do an error? No. The Imam comes forward and says that Adam responded to this and said that I could not fathom that someone would lie. The concept of a lie was not known to me at the time, or was not aware that someone could say by God and it could be a lie. So I was deceived. When he was deceived and this happened, he went towards the grass, the wheat grass, and he ate it. And therefore he was moved out of Jannah. Now, is it this Jannah, the world of in this world, or the other world? That's another debate for another day. Nonetheless, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, he says, Sa'sa, this was Adam, and it was not haram for me to eat wheat, but my entire life I ate nothing except barley bread, that was that too which had become dry and stale. This was Adam, this was me. Although it was not mandated, I made sure that I never came near wheat. I made sure that I ate barley. Although it was difficult, although it was a hardship, I made sure that I did this, number one. Sa'sa continues, he says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, are you elevated or is Nuh alayhi salam elevated? Are you elevated or is Noah elevated? At that point in time, Ali ibn Abi Talib says that Sa'sa, no, that Nuh is elevated, but I am more elevated than Nuh. Why? Because Nuh preached for 950 years, but yet, despite all the difficulties, he finally cursed his nation. He finally prayed for Allah to remove his rahmah from the nation, and Allah did so. He said, Sa'sa, 25 years that I went through were worse than the years that Nuh went through. They were more intense than the years of Nuh. And yet I did not ever pray to Allah, nor did I ever curse this nation, nor did I pray for Allah to remove his rahmah from this nation. This was my heart. He says, Sa'sa, he begins to ask, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ya Ali. He says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, you are going to depart very soon. Just tell me, are you more elevated or is Ibrahim more elevated? He says, Sa'sa, no, that Ibrahim is exalted. Ibrahim is elevated, but I am more exalted, more elevated than Ibrahim. He says, why? He says, because Ibrahim, he asked Allah to show how will you resurrect the dead? How will you bring the dead back to life? Allah says to Ibrahim, Ibrahim, do you not have certainty? Do you not have belief? Do you not believe that I can do this? The one who gave you life in the first place? He says, no. He says, Ya Allah, he says to his Lord, that so that I can increase my yaqeen, my certainty and the tranquility in my heart, that I can have a sense of certainty and belief, and seeing this to increase my certainty and my yaqeen and have peace of mind and peace of heart. This is what Ibrahim says. He says, I, Ali, had said in my life, لَوْ قُشِفَ الْغِطَاءَ لَمَا رَزَقْتُ يَقِينًا, that if you remove the curtains of the world, of the universe, of the secrets, still the yaqeen, the certainty and the certitude of Ali ibn Abi Talib will not increase. This is Ali ibn Abi Talib. Therefore, he's more elevated. Sa'sa says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, you are Musa alayhi salam. Very interesting. At that point in time, we're told that Ali ibn Abi Talib says, Musa was very exalted. He was very high, but I'm more exalted. He says, why, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen? He says, because when Musa alayhi salam, when Allah told him, اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى, that go towards Fir'aun, he has transgressed, he proceeded. When he proceeded forward, there was a moment where he killed a young boy, a young Egyptian. When he killed him, at that point in time, he fled the city. When he fled, when he was going back towards Fir'aun, at that point in time, we're told that Fir'aun, at this moment, Musa alayhi salam asked for a companion. He asked for Aaron. He asked for Harun as a supporter to help him in speech and to help him in protection and to help him in all these other things. When he asked for this help, he was a great prophet, but he asked for help. He says, Ali ibn Abi Talib says, I was asked by Rasulullah, I was asked by the Holy Prophet to deliver Surah Al-Bara'at. I was asked by Rasulullah to deliver Surah At-Tawbah to the Meccans and tell them that you are to leave Mecca because Allah is upset with you transgressing all your bounds and transgressing all of the agreements. You are to leave. He said, when I went there was not a single person in the city of Mecca. After I left Medina going towards Mecca, there was not a single person in all of Medina that did not have at least one relative who had not been killed at my hands in the battle of Badr and Uhud and the likes. Because every person had either a cousin, a brother, a relative, someone who was near, someone who was dear, who had been slaughtered at my hands. They all had animosity. They all had hatred. They all had all of this towards me, and yet I went towards Mecca with Surah Tawbah, with Surah Bara'at, and I stood on the mount. And Mecca is that place where one should preserve the sanctity of the Kaaba. At that point, Amir al-Mu'minin was not wearing any armor. In front of all of these people, he went towards the Kaaba. And by the Kaaba, he stood there and he says, Surah Bara'at, Surah Tawbah has been revealed. He recited onto them and said, you are to leave. Only the courage of Ali ibn Abi Talib could allow for this happen. He says, Sa'sa, therefore, as elevated as Musa is, I never asked for a companion. I never asked for a support. I always at every moment went with myself or I supported Rasulullah. Furthermore, he continues and he says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, are you more elevated or Isa? Who is more elevated? At that point in time, he says, Isa is very elevated, but I am more elevated. Why? Because when the mother of Isa was going to be, when Isa was going to be born, the mother of Isa, Maryam alayhi salam, she was in the vicinity of the house of worship of God. And Allah said that this is a place of worship. You are to leave here. You are to leave this vicinity. This was the mother of Isa. At the same time, when I was to be born, my mother was not in the Kaaba. She was outside of the Kaaba, but she was invited inside the Kaaba so that I am to be born inside the Kaaba. Isa's mother was asked to leave the vicinity because this is a holy place. My mother was asked to enter into the very house of God in order for me to be born. These are the fadail and the merits of Ali ibn Abi Talib as highlighted by Imam al-Majlisi and other scholars such as Sayyid Shirazi and others throughout history, referring to the author of Shabahai Peshawar, the Peshawar Nights. These various scholars have highlighted this tradition that Sa'sa understood at the final moments of Ali ibn Abi Talib. If there was anyone, there was only Ali ibn Abi Talib who was supposed to be the rightful Khalifa after Rasulullah. And those people who took this position, they must understand that the same way that you treat Abu Bakr and you say that Abu Bakr, anyone who opposed him is an apostate and left the fold of Islam, then don't have a double standard. When you say Ali ibn Abi Talib and you say that's the one who opposed Ali ibn Abi Talib, the same principle should apply. The same concept should apply. And that is that that person, whether it's Talha and Zubair or Aisha, or whether it's Muawiyah, anyone who went against the position of Ali ibn Abi Talib, that person must be apostate. Yet this does not exist. This fairness does not exist amongst the Muslims today, unfortunately. I ask this question and I leave this question for the Muslim Ummah. Why was it that they did this with Ali ibn Abi Talib? And furthermore, why is it that the animosity that took place after the assassination of Ali ibn Abi Talib, why did that continue in his line? Because as Sayyid Hakim highlights in his book and his works as well, he highlights that this idea that it was not against Ali, they had animosity against Rasulullah. And because they could not take out their revenge on Rasulullah, because Rasulullah was the clear leader of Islam, they said, who's the closest person to Rasulullah? Let's take out our revenge on him. That's why Yazid said after Karbala, Laibat Hashim bil mulk, فلا خبر ولا جاء نزل. He said, Hasha lillah. He said that there was no wahi, there was no revelation. This was just a game that Banu Hashim had played with the people. It was that animosity that Abu Sufyan had against Rasulullah, that Muawiyah had against Ali ibn Abi Talib, that Muawiyah had against Imam Hassan alayhi salam, that for example Yazid had against Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. This was the truth of the matter. They hated the righteousness, they hated the honesty, they hated the integrity. That's what they were trying to slay with Ali ibn Abi Talib. Why else for 90 years in the masajid of Sham, in Damascus, in the Levant, would they curse Ali ibn Abi Talib? This view, and I finally invite all of the Muslim world to think and reflect on this point. Is Ali the first or is Ali the fourth? You ask yourself. If Ali is the fourth, then give him at least the same courtesy you give the first. Because the first one, the ones who oppose the first are apostates. But the ones who oppose the fourth, they are considered people who did error and ijtihad. Why this generosity for the people who opposed? Because that view is not your view. That view was created by Umayyah. View was created by Banu Umayyah, by Muawiyah, by his children, so that you do not question them and you legitimize them. And this may be being used till this very day. Ali ibn Abi Talib was the rightful Khalifa, was the rightful Imam, was the rightful leader after Rasulullah, as testimony by the state and the environment after at Ghadir, at Dawat al Ashira, and throughout time. Ali ibn Abi Talib is the Khalifa bila fasl of Rasulullah. And how did this world treat Ali ibn Abi Talib? That now at this point the blood has seeped and he has been buried,
And the people begin to cry. Ali ibn Abi Talib says that live amongst people in such a way that when you are alive, they crave for your company. And when you die, they weep for you. What a mu'min was Amir al Mu'mineen, the master, the commander, the prince of the believers, that when he left this world, not only did the orphans of Kufa cry, not only did the widows cry, only did the poor cry, not only did the blind cry, not only did the disabled cry, not only did anyone who was marginalized in society cry. Till this day, 1400 years later, you and I cry because the world has not seen justice after Ali ibn Abi Talib. The world has not seen sincere leadership after Ali ibn Abi Talib. The world has not seen integrity of leadership after Ali ibn Abi Talib. The world is starving for truth and justice and equity. And that will only be established when the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al Aswa Zaman, emerges, which we pray for the hastening of the reappearance of the Imam of our time. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله صلى الله عليك يا أمير المؤمنين صلى الله عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين صلى الله عليك يا حسن المجتبى سلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين اللهم لعن قتلة الأمير المؤمنين